Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton Sawin coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Before we get started, I want to say if anyone out there has a story they would like to share, whether it be Bigfoot, Dogman, or any kind of cryptid. We've had pterodactyl and thunderbird stories here. We've had supernatural, paranormal, all kinds of stories. If it's a mystery, then contact me at brentonson@gmail.com and I'll get back to you. So just leave a description of what your story's about. If you want it to be read, then write the whole thing out well. Let me know what I can use, your first name or whole name, things like that. And from there, we'll just contact you back and see what you are willing to do. If you want to come tell your story yourself, that's great. And if you want me to read it, that's great. But just give me contact information and a description of the story. And before we get started with a awesome Bigfoot story, this story is got a twist like you won't believe in it. And this story comes from Texas. And I'll let this fellow introduce himself just in case he doesn't want his whole name out there or what have you. So I'll let him introduce himself. But he's from Texas and he's had a Dogman encounter before and went back to this site looking for Dogman and ended up having a very, very scary Bigfoot situation. Let's just say that, with more than one. And but then it takes a very, very strange twist. So you're going to really like this story, I think. It's got the bizarre factor. Now, Thrunite had sent me a flashlight, the Archer, and then they sent me a headlamp that had the low, medium, high, and you could, well, actually the headlamp had hold the button down, it could dim and then go up fairly bright. Very good for fishing, even, going hiking and things like that when it gets dark. But I said, man, I kind of want something that's bright. So they sent me the TH10, and all they asked me to do is just mention the product. And but the TH10 has got like this extra little strap on the top where you strap the thing on, and you go squatching. But I'm telling you what, this it doesn't dim, but it has low, medium, and high. And the high is super bright, man. I was outside and I hit it on high and I lit up the house all the way down the block. I mean, it's unbelievable what a bright light this is. Now, the other two lights, they used a double A for the other headlamp, and then the flashlight used two double A's. This uses a rechargeable battery. It's a very nice built too. When you hold it, you can see that it's just wonderful, craftsmanship and high quality, kind of like a Leatherman. When you hold a Leatherman, it's not the same as some of the other types. But anyway, it has this little carrier case, and you can charge your battery. The battery's in it. It's bigger than a double A battery, but it comes with this chargeable battery, maybe about 1.5 times the size of a double A. But you can put it in here. Sorry, dropped that. And then you can charge it with the USB. And it comes with a little carrying case. I guess you can strap it on your side or whatever, and bring your battery with you and recharge it on your computer even if you want, I guess. And but to me, I think it's an awesome light because with that little Archer and that other little headlamp that goes on those cheap double A batteries, man, I can go to the Dollar Tree and buy a pack of 8 double A batteries for $1. And I mean, I can leave the lights on all weekend. It's amazing. And the bulb, I got to reading about these lights, man. The bulb in this TH10 is 20 years. unbelievable, man. I'm telling you, the technology is getting to be incredible. And if you want some cool lights, man, I will go squatching with this one, because I'm telling you, I hit in the evening time. I went around and spotlighted people in the house here, man, and when I hit them with the high beam off this, they were like, oh, like, my gosh, I can't see nothing now. It's super bright. Um, I don't know exactly how many lumens it is, but it's really bright, and so you can check it out. And I'll leave links in the description for you to go, see the products. And this one's the TH10, and I also have been sent the, I think, TH20, had two headlamps, and then the little Archer flashlight. And I really like the Archer flashlight because it has low, medium, high, and then you hold it down and it goes to strobe. So it's like a tactical flashlight, and you can clip it on your belt even. So hunting and things like that, man, you could hold it, and you know, you know what I'm saying? You could do, to me, I think even if you were a cop, man, you could take that little light. It's small and super bright, too, and you could use it for whatever. I want to go fishing and also squatching with these things, camping and things. And I will have all that I need, and for next to nothing when it comes to batteries. I can recharge this battery and not ever have to really do nothing. I can charge it in the truck, if put the little thing in a cigarette lighter and charge it on the USB. But anyway, y'all check these lights out, man. Go buy some of them. And they've got other ones too that are just phenomenal, and they're good quality. I'm telling you, I would not promote these if they weren't, because I'm not being paid to do it. They send them to me and ask me to review them, and I'm telling you, they're awesome. Now, our story today is Bigfoot, and I'm telling you, it's an awesome, awesome story. And I have some really good stuff coming up, and I'll be sharing my own Bigfoot encounter that I've kind of held off on. I'll be sharing that soon. And I might go on Vic's show and share it. I was talking to him earlier, and we might have some expedition things coming up. I was going to talk to him about that, and maybe do kind of like a little get together and go meet in a certain place and see if the fans want to come, and we can all tell stories and have some speakers and things like that. And it's just some ideas I'm throwing around. In the meantime, we will go on some trips here soon. It's getting closer and closer. I just have some things I need to take care of first. But anyway, let's go to our guest, and you are going to dig this story. It has got a very strange twist, and I've been really looking forward to talking with this guy. Hope you enjoy. All right, Joel, if you would, I'd like for you to introduce yourself and tell where you're from, and then we will get into your stories and the progression of why you ended up going camping with your friend.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was still listening to you talk. My name's Joel Harvey, and I've been an outdoorsman my whole life. Grew up, my family's always had a hunting lease down in Brownwood. And so, I mean, as early as 7 years old, I had a shotgun, run around outside shooting whatever we could find. And yeah, so fast forward, joined the Army, met my buddy Doug. I actually ended up, he went on to serve, and he did real well. I ended up getting kicked out. So just kind of wanted to be forefront about that. It was, I had, I don't know why I'm getting into all this, but anyway, I peed hot on a test and got kicked out after airborne school. So anyway, we stayed in touch. He went overseas and did really well. Did 8 years, stayed in touch the whole time, just stayed good buddies. And so I went down to the lease. I want to say we were on it was like the last weekend of deer season 2014. And we it was the final day, and I'll just kind of get into how I got into all this. But so it was the final day, and we had seen deer all weekend. It was it was a perfect weekend. We hadn't taken anything. I think I had already shot, a couple doe that season. I was kind of waiting for a real good buck to take. We like to, let them grow. We're not going to take a, young buck or anything like that. So, first 2 days of the hunt are normal. We, saw maybe 10, 12 deer in the feeder at a time. We were seeing all this activity, all these animals. And the third day, it was a morning hunt. We were just going to hunt in the morning, eat breakfast, and leave. And we were walking up to the blind. We parked the truck maybe a quarter mile or so away from where we're hunting, and then we will walk up to the blind. And as we're walking on up, a rock comes in at least 100 miles an hour, maybe faster, because it hit the ground and sounded like a gunshot right at my feet, right in front of my feet. And I'm walking in front of my father, who's hunting with me that day, and I literally just jump. I jump up, 3 feet in the air, and I just kind of naturally in the air kind of spin to where I think the rock was thrown, and I'm kind of staring off, and there's no sunlight at this point, so there's no real visibility, and this trail we're walking up has got brush on either side. It's about, it's all overgrown brush. You can't really quite see into, you can't see 2 feet past, the trail. So anyway, so I look back at my dad and I yell at him like, what the hell, pardon my language, but what the heck was that? And my dad, he was just kind of moseying behind. He was, just being real sleepy or something that day, but he looks back and he's just like, what? Like he didn't hear it. And meanwhile, there's still like dust coming up from this rock, where I'm like shining my flashlight on. It was like something very, it had to have been a rock hit right at my feet. So anyway, I just figured, well, I don't know. There's probably lots of deer. It could have, maybe I'm tired and a deer kicked up some rocks as we were, pushing, moving up to the blind. And anyway, we get in the blind and we don't see anything. We're waiting there and we don't see anything. The sun's kind of starting to come up. And there's just no sign of anything. We think it's strange because especially we've been looking at all these. There were tons of birds. It's just a really good weather and lots of, for some reason, all the animals were out. Anyway, today was different. There weren't, anything out. And then finally we're sitting there and I think I'm starting to fall asleep. And my dad nudges me or I nudge him. I forgot who saw it first, but this deer pokes out of the tree line from the left. And because our blind kind of looks down about 100 yards, I'd say, maybe a little less, maybe 75 to 100 yards, slightly downhill into a little clearing. And so we're looking at this deer, and it's just one deer to doe, and she's just run ragged. She's completely out of breath. She's past a normal, just out of breath. To the point where she's stumbling. I remember seeing her stumble. It was kind of a sight to see her. We're watching her, and she's just beyond spooked. She's looking right. She's looking left. Just normally they'll kind of calm down after, being around the 10 for a second, and they'll kind of relax, start eating some corn. And
so you had a deer feeder out here, right?
Yeah, one of my uncles is actually a game warden, and he lives down there, and so he'll go around and keep the feeders, full of corn. So we're feeding corn year round.
Right.
And then when deer season comes around, we just kind of come down and thank him for, taking care of.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because I don't think you mentioned that part. So you're sitting up in your blind, you're looking down at this clearing where your deer feeder is, meant to attract deer, and this deer pops up looking like he's being hunted, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Super spooked and looking around, stumbling like he's been running for his life. Okay?
Hey, I've been deer hunting my entire life. I've never seen a deer even close to that spooked. And hunters know deer season. If you've been hunting an area for a while, they know what's going on. They're very... they're smart. I'm thinking how smart a dog is. Deer can be just smart, at times.
Right.
So this thing was just, it was trembling. It was visibly trembling from 75 yards away. and it wasn't very good visibility yet. It was still just, the sun was just kind of starting to peak up. So as that's happening, and I'm looking at this deer, the deer kind of looks to the right. It's looking, its head's just on a swivel, like a football player or something, looking left, looking right, looking, and finally it kind of just putters back left, kind of moses back left, and then these, and I've forgotten how many in my head. I'm seeing like 4, maybe 5 creatures come out from the wood line in the clearing on the right side. The deer just exited to the left, and these things are pushing out right. And they were just, I've been out there my whole life. I've never seen anything like that. They were all about maybe 3, 4, in between, maybe 3.5 feet tallish, something like that, and maybe about at least 4 to 5 feet long. They were moving just incredibly stealthily. It was just insane. I mean, I've never seen even a black panther, a cat on TV move like this. And it was very strange.
So something that's 3 foot tall at the back, that's a huge canine, isn't it?
Well, me and my dad were talking and back and forth, and his eyeballs, I'll never forget the look on his face. His eyeballs are just, they're just bulging out of his head. And he's sitting there, I could see his brain trying to come up with something, and he's like, no, maybe those are raccoons. And I'm looking, I'm like, Dad, like that feeder, we know the fence that goes around that feeder is easily 3.5, 4 feet tall, and these things were coming right up to it. Their backs were. Right. They were maybe 5 inches, and then it might be a little taller. Those feeder pins, may get up to closer to 5 feet, 4.5, something like that.
Right.
But it was just. So anyway, he's trying to think. Well, maybe they're this, maybe they're that, and we keep going back and forth, and we're just like, we've got no idea what these things are. And I'm literally, at this point, I can't believe what I'm seeing. So I'm looking through, my scope. I got the rifle, and because I guess I was gonna, shoot a buck that day, and so I'm looking through the rifle, just trying to see if I could see a face to it, just try to identify the creatures. And they're literally, we didn't have much visibility. Again, I don't know what time exactly it was in the morning, but the sky's gray and everything else is kind of black, and there's kind of a lot of shadows going around, so it was really hard to make out what they were, but I didn't make out exactly what it was. And I've had people say, there's cougars in Texas, and yeah, I've done some research since then. I've never seen a cougar in my life. I know people with cougars not on their wall. They are here, but the ones I've seen are usually more mountain lion looking. They've never been completely black. I've never seen that. And these were I've never heard of a bunch of mountain lions rolling together in a pack of 4 or 5, and they just seem way bigger than are probably slightly larger than a mountain lion. I guessed them to be about maybe, it's hard to say but now that I've had a little more time to think, they had to have been at least 100 pounds.
Well, if their back was as high as your the fence around your feet, if they were 3 foot off the ground, 4 or 5 foot long, they would be more than that.
They could be. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, any dog that's that big is at least a 200 and something pound dog. But by scale, you were noticing they were way too big. And you and your dad both being seasoned hunters, you're sitting there thinking, what in the world is this? Trying to come up with a rational explanation. And they're moving in such a stealthy, cat-like way that it doesn't match a canine-type figure. Is that kind of accurate?
That's about, that's right.
And where the sun wasn't up yet, you're not able to have perfect visibility, but they appeared to be jet black, correct?
Yes. Yeah. They seemed at the time to be darker than, they were very dark. And that's why I was just having such a hard time getting a real make on them. So I couldn't quite get a silhouette. They would kind of, it was real stealthy the way they entered. They were kind of turning away. And then, I could continue unless you had some more questions.
No, go ahead.
So anyway, so they end up vanishing. and the sun's starting to come up a little bit more. And then, I thought it was a real strange part of the story because I've, never seen anything like this either. But a fox came directly under our blind, sat about 10 yards, looked right up at us with this huge grin on his face, like we just didn't matter. It was just, this little 25-pound fox, he may have been 30 pounds tops, And he's sitting there and stares at us for about an hour. It wasn't that long. Maybe it was 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. But he just sat there and stared at us. And I start, at this point, the sun's up. It's been a while. The feeder's gone off. Nothing's come. It's been that one weird deer and that weird experience. We're not seeing any other animals, so we're getting kind of ready to leave. And I'm like hanging my head out of the blind, just kind of like, look at this thing, seeing if I could, because I've just never seen one so calm around people. I've hunted fox at night and shot them, and they're very elusive, right. And they, it's just really strange to see one so comfortable. And
okay,
got up and
let's pause right there then. Now, many times when there is a top predator like a Dogman or a Bigfoot in the area, there seems to be times in so many different reports where an animal will come out of the woods and they'll run to people. And do you think maybe the fox came to you because they knew that if I know that these people I usually won't go around, but I know that they're not going to like these people, and it was just a last resort kind of thing. I'm going to go over here next to these people, and I'll be safe, because a fox wouldn't be safe around Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
They kill dogs.
Yeah. Well, the only thing with that is when he left, he went the same way those creatures had come from.
Oh, really?
It's kind of into that clearing, and then right over to the right, the fox kind of sat there and messed with us for about 20 minutes, and then like low crawled, he got really low and stalked his way out into just where they came from. So I don't know if, I really don't know what happened there.
Wow, that is bizarre, isn't it? Well, I'll tell you what, then it's only guesswork, I guess. I know that deer have come out and they've run to humans before, as Sasquatch was coming by, chasing them, and I think it was to. They didn't know what else to do, and they knew that if I'm scared of these humans, then I think these Sasquatch won't want to go near them. Because you think about it in the Bible, the Bible says that God would put the fear of man in animals. You know what I'm saying? So as a last resort survival thing, maybe that's possible. I don't know, but the audience will take their guesses at it. But that is very, very bizarre for sure. And so what happened when you were leaving for the day?
We were leaving. Oh yeah. So we're leaving. We get down. We're just kind of, we're not really talking much about it. We're just kind of chalking everything up as like, well, it's early, and that was, and knowing my daddy, and unless a Bigfoot walks out and shakes his hand, he just doesn't have time for it, kind of, guy. But anyway, so we're leaving, and I'm in the lead again, and all of a sudden I get just hit with this just palpable, just insane type of fear, which is just, it's out of my personality. For one, I'm not the kind of guy that sure, everyone's got, certain little anxieties and stuff like that, but this was something that made me stop and start looking around. It was, it's something that you just know is your life's in danger. It's just total dread. And so I'm looking around like, and I remember that rock that was thrown at me. I was like, there could be some hillbillies out here or something. It could be anything. I actually have a cousin who was actually beat up out in the woods. He was watching over someone's house and cracked over the head with something. They were throwing rocks at the house. Anyway, so I'm on just high alert, and I'm looking around. I'm, I'm just being cool. And the fear just keeps getting worse and worse. And I'm starting to really get, like, okay, well, I better just, get my rifle up and just start getting ready, because I don't know what's going on. But I try to listen to, when I have feelings like that, I'm going to just check it out for a second. And so all of a sudden the fear's getting worse and worse. And finally I just remember, well, I'm just going to pray. So I just, in my heart, as I'm walking down this path, I start saying the Lord's Prayer. And literally the second I'm done, I mean, it's a weird feeling to describe, but I was kind of sad. The fear was so good just so intense at one point. It just felt like I was walking through mud. And I mean, my legs kind of started getting, so I said the Lord's Prayer, before I start seizing up. And, it worked. Whatever it was just vanished, just completely vanished. And I told Vic this on his show too, but as we were leaving, my dad had pointed out the track. And it was a huge, and at the time we had chalked it up to, well, it must have been, mountain lions. That's kind of the, that's what we always want to, see out there. You just, you're always hoping to see the mountain lion or whatever. And, so we thought it was a big mountain lion track. We didn't, I don't remember seeing, claw marks, or I think I talked with Vic and he explained that a wolf print would have, claw marks where their claws are. And I didn't see any of that. Or I don't remember seeing that. Again, it looked kind of like a few days old print. It had really gotten muddy. And so, I mean, it was definite print, but anyway.
But do you think it was a canine print or was it a cat print?
That's one thing I've never done much of is tracking. Right. So I mean, as embarrassing as that is, I should know what a difference between a dog and a cat print, but it looked, it had that kind of paw with the, skinnier in the back, and I don't remember how many toe prints were on it, but I mean, it was big. I remember my dad kind of looking at it, me looking at it like, wow, we're always thinking there could be a 200-pound mountain lion, around the corner, so we thought we just chalked it up to that, but, whatever that print was, I do remember it was as big or probably bigger than my fist, it was a big old print of some sort.
Yeah. Well, with what you all just saw, heck fire. Surely you all thought maybe it could have been those things that you just saw, right?
That's what I did. I went, we just kind of moseyed about our day. I guess we were so focused on just kind of leaving and packing up and getting out of there. We didn't really talk much of it until I got home that night and started thinking what about Bigfoot? There's got to be something in the woods I don't know about and this and that. And I start looking into that. And the more I researched and the more I learned, and then talking with Vic, he kind of was under the assumption that what I saw were dogmen.
Right, yeah. That's what it sounds like. They were too big, and a lot of times they are on all fours like that, and they run around. And so many times too, you hear about these things being that smooth when they move. That's what stood out to me when I heard your story on Vic's show. I didn't really ever know you would contact me with a Bigfoot story, and so just letting the audience know, we touched base on this story. That you can hear on episode 41 and get some more details about the Dogman encounter that Joel had. But we were trying to set the stage for why he went to go in the woods with a friend of his, and they were going to go look for Dogman, but they ended up finding something else. So if you want to, I guess we'll go forward with the story from there to what you went to go do after this encounter, the email you sent me, basically.
Yeah. So after I had that encounter, I went and did research and went on Vic's show and told him my story and I had been down to the lease. We didn't make it out. It was a real busy year, with work and everything. It's hard for me to get down there as much as I'd like to, but so I ended up going back down there around, I don't know, it was summer. It was like a work weekend just to go and help out around. And so I go down there and me and my cousin, we, I didn't really mention it to him. I just, I don't know why. I just didn't really want to get into it. I don't see him often enough to just come straight out with that. So we went all over the property and I kind of poked around and I didn't see any evidence of anything around where, I hunt or anything like that. So I just kind of well, whatever. And I start, listening to more shows. And I kind of start getting more and more into, trying to figure out what I saw and hearing people's stories. It's just so believable. And so I started thinking, I've got a national forest just, not 3 hours from here, the Sam Houston National Forest. And I know, my buddy Doug, we're always going hunting or fishing or we're doing something. And he's one of the few friends I'll, talk to about this. I mean, I'll talk to it with anyone who's I could tell wants to listen, but, it's just, you could tell when someone's not going to listen, so,
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, he's always been that kind of guy for me. And, so I told him all about it. I said, hey man, listen to this show, Dogman Encounters. I was like, I pulled up some stuff where I could like prove, there's a few photos of Dogman and this and that. I was like, let's go, man. Let's get our rifles and let's, you and me, we've known each other for a long time. I trust you, you trust me. Let's, go camp, see what we see. And he's kind of on the fence about it. But he's always up for anything. He's just, just an outdoors guy. And so he agrees, and we go down there. It's cold out. It was like, I want to say, I think I emailed you and said it was like, February. It may have been January. January or February is when we went, of this year. And, so I look up some reports of sightings, dogmen sighting, this and that in the same Houston National Forest, because I want to know the area. And I'm looking at the topography of it. I still got a map in my truck. Just, map of the place, and we look at it, and we're looking at areas, okay, well, where's water, where's, what's the elevation, where's the high points, where's this thing, if, we really want to have an encounter, we're fully armed, we're guys that are, we pretty good behind a weapon, so we felt pretty comfortable. And, so anyway, we, drive down there, check out the Sam Houston, statue, and I didn't get into this, but I can kind of get into the long story now that we're, recording it. But so we get down there and we're trying to find a place to hunt. We got our public, our national public permits to hunt, which is different than your just regular hunting license, your state license. So we got all those. We're trying to find a place to hunt, and we just can't find it anywhere. We're pretty shocked. I've never been hunting on public land in national forest ever, so I was. It was all pretty new to me, but I figured there'd be some kind of, I was calling the game warden and just letting them know, hey, we're going to be here. And because also I know what we're doing, and I wanted people to be aware, and, like, where we were at and this and that, just in case, something was wrong. And I was just shocked at how hard it was to find the Sam Houston National Forest. As big as it is, they really there's not a lot of roads. And the people, when we tell them we were hunting, a lot of them, and this will tie in later, but a lot of them were real off-put, and it was strange. But we were just asking to hunt. We had our hunter's orange, and we're fully licensed. We're not out here, cruising around and drinking or anything. We're very respectable guys, and they were just kind of getting looked at like hunting. I've never even heard of anyone that hunts around here. But we were just getting turned around. It took us like 4 hours to just find the entrance into the park, finally find where to hunt and all that stuff. So we go into this park and find, we're just all happy, and we find this camp area, right when we get in there, and I find a good spot to park my truck, and I see this camp lady, she's like the manager or whatever, and she's driving around a little golf cart. Her name was Patty. All right, man. Anyway, so we pull over and we're all excited, and we get out of the car, and I just kind of get into it with Patty, like, hey, Patty, we're talking for a bit, and I was like, have you ever, seen Bigfoot, around here, or have you ever heard stories of that? I was like, that's kind of, we're down here and just kind of looking for a good area. And it was funny, she just looks right at me, and just her face drops, and she just goes, honey, you think Texas is the only place around here that's got Bigfoot? I guess she was from some state up north, but apparently they get them everywhere, and it's just second nature. And she told me a story of a guy, about a week or 2 weeks before this incident, who was fishing, and she kind of pointed down the road where it was. But apparently a Bigfoot, he was fishing, and this Bigfoot came right up to him, and about 10 feet away is what she said, the guy relayed it to her, and shook these two massive trees. I mean, they were probably, I don't know, not massive, but probably about 6 inches, but she described them like 5-6 inches across, and he shook these trees for about 20-30 seconds, grunting and screaming at this guy, and then just walked off.
Wow.
And it was just real strange. So I was like, okay. And then I got into, I was like, well, we're hunting, and we definitely want to be far away from camp, because we don't, there was kids out there, and there's people camping, and, we kind of talked to a few of the people, and, so she says, well, if you want, we've been having a real bad hog problem, and there's these hogs, you'll find the trail, if y'all just go out that way on the trail, and about, I don't know how, a mile out, you'll start seeing it starts wrapping around the lake, and there's these hogs that go to the lake nightly. And if y'all post up, she was sure we could get them. And apparently they were being a nuisance to the camp. So we, we're like, yeah, it sounds great. We'll kill, she gave us full authority to get as many as we could. But, I don't know how we'd haul all that back. And, so, anyway, so we park the truck, we get all our supplies. It's, starting to get a little bit later, not too late, but it's, late afternoon. And we start hiking. And we go on this first trail, and kind of where the lady pointed us in the direction of where these hogs were, this hog trail was. And so we start walking, and right as we get up, we're at the, there's like a little, stand where you can sign, your name or whatever, and it's kind of a little greeting area or whatever before you enter the trail. And these two older gentlemen, I say this in my email either, but walked up right as we were about to get on the trail, and they were just hikers, and like one of them had a walking stick, and they were probably, they were at least 50 years old, maybe top 60, so it's not like they were real old guys, but they were, they had just gotten off what they said was like a 20-mile hike. And it's not very forgiving through the Sam Houston National Forest. The trail's going, it's not an easy trail, and 20 miles off-road is not very fun. That's hard to do. And they're carrying gear. They're carrying all their gear. They got packs on. And it's just something I thought was strange. Later, we asked them, it was funny, we asked them, I was like, so, did you see anything out there? We're, just trying to make small talk with them. And they said, and I swear on my life, they looked at me, and they kind of muttered it under his breath, but he looked at his friend, too, and looked at me and said, none of the, it was something like, none of the kind on 4 legs, something like that, and a little smirk on his face, or only the kind on 2 legs, I think is what he said. And then he kind of smirked, and I kind of looked and kind of, looked at Doug, and Doug's kind of, looking at the guy like, that was strange. And one thing I thought was strange is these guys aren't out of breath at all. They could have been maybe even a little over 60, but they weren't out of breath, and they were carrying gear, and they just said they were done with a 20-mile hike, and they're making these strange comments, and then anyway, it was just strange. So we just kind of like, all right, well, whatever, and we started walking, and we're trying to push into this area that I've got kind of circled on this map, and it wasn't too hard to find. We kind of followed the trail for most of it, and then we kind of cut across kind of straight into this deep stuff for a while, and kind of went higher up in elevation. And so we're walking maybe a couple hours. I don't know if we go maybe, we're probably not going as far as I thought. We might have gone a couple miles, 2 or 3 miles. And we come across this rabbit, and the plan was to hunt. So, I shoot this rabbit, and, and felt kind of bad because he kind of literally just ran out in the middle of the path and then just kind of sat there. And so anyway, he was a good-sized rabbit, and I skinned him, and we ate him that night, and he was delicious. But anyway, so we get to the this area that we think is a pretty good spot, and it's a good campsite. And we're actually planning on, this is just day one. We were going to push even farther. I've got, all kinds of food, and I believe I was carrying, I don't know how much water. I was carrying a big freaking jug of water and just all kinds of stuff, and water filtration and all kinds of stuff. And so anyway, we make camp. We're just talking. We cooked that rabbit. It was awesome. And then I brought my iPad out because I know I wouldn't get service, but I downloaded some movies on my iPad, and I figured, I just had it charged up. We'll just play those movies, and we'll just drink, and we'll just, call it a night. And because we were pretty tired. We'd spent all day driving down to Houston, running around the campsite, trekking out here, and so it's getting late, and we've got the campsite all put up, and we hop in, we start playing this movie. And about maybe 30 minutes in, it's probably getting close to midnight-ish around that area. And we just start hearing these shrieks, like these horrific. It sounded like a mixture between a man and like a gorilla, because it would start off and just kind of like, ah! And then it would go down into this, these grunts. And it was just a real weird sound, and we were just like, what the hell is that? And I'm sitting there talking to him like, dude, this is probably it. This is probably, I told you about this. Is this really happening? I'm kind of getting excited at this point, but I don't know what's going on. So we're kind of sat still, and we turn everything off, and we're kind of looking out the flap of this tent, and this thing starts closing in, and the shrieks start getting closer and closer. And not only that, but there's more of them now. And we're starting to hear tree knocks maybe at this point, 50 to 100 yards out that are just, I mean, you could almost feel them. I mean, it just sounded like someone was just, just cutting trees in half. I mean, it's just insane. So we're plenty terrified at this point. I mean, they're closing in. Literally, they have us completely surrounded. We had found this little kind of clearing, and we were hearing them from basically all sides. The lake was way far back, so I mean, we didn't have anything behind us. We were surrounded, and these things are just shrieking and losing their mind. And at one point, they're literally maybe 20 yards off, and we've got our rifles in our hands, and we're trying to think, like, are we going to do something about this, or are we going to wait till these things rip our tent open? I mean, they're close enough now to where I'm pretty sure this thing could just jump here in one leap and just, stomp us both into the ground, no problem. So I'm sitting there, I'm getting, and then all of a sudden they start getting more and more fierce. And Wow. It was just, they kind of just let us know that, yeah, I mean, actually, me and Doug had been, after we shot that rabbit, we shot off a few more rounds, just kind of playing around, shooting trees and stuff like that. And so I don't know if that drew them in or they thought that was a threat or whatever it was, but they let us know pretty quick we weren't a threat to them at all. I mean, they were completely surrounding us. Doug estimated anywhere from 20 to 30. I was thinking somewhere more along the line of 15 of them.
Right. So how many did you say?
How many?
Yeah.
I guessed about 15. Doug, he's probably a little better at stuff like that than me, but he was saying about 20 to 30. Yeah. There was all kinds of voices. There was young ones. There was females. There was a big daddy that would go off about every so often. You knew he was the biggest one.
Wow.
I mean, it was terrifying. But we're kind of looking at each other and just kind of, it kind of got a little surreal. We're kind of laughing.
Right.
We're not laughing, but we're just kind of like, what? Like, what is this? And we're just trying to see out of this tent hole, and we got our rifles, and we're ready to go. And the things, it just starts getting more and more threatening. Doug starts yelling back at him. He starts, doing the same sounds and all these kind of monkey slash, they were doing all kinds of stuff. It wasn't just, I didn't really hear any chatter. I've heard that they do this weird chatter type stuff, but all I know is whatever it was not human, because it was just too loud and it was just way too powerful. And any humans wouldn't have been messing with us because we had just met everyone in the camp way back. We'd been shooting our rifles off all day long. I mean, it wasn't, they had to be completely insane to
Yeah, and it sounded like ape type sounds, right?
Yes.
So
yeah,
it basically sounded like if you were at a zoo and you're having ape sounds.
There's recordings of it. I've listened to, I forgot what they're called, but there's a recording of these things doing this howl grunt thing that I heard. But if you could just times that by 50 and bring, because the recording I heard, it's like one or two and they're real far off. And what I experienced was tons of them. Maybe literally at one time they could have been 20 to 50 yards off. Not once did we get a visual. We were both had our heads peeking out, trying to see something, but we weren't about to get out of the tent. And anyway,
so do you think they knew where you were and they were closing in on you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Because they started off far away, and yeah, they would even call out. They started, this group here that had us surrounded would start making calls, and we started hearing it from far off, like across the lake. I mean, these other ones are so loud and their voices are so strong, they were carrying for miles. They just shriek out, and they can, I mean, that's how loud this thing is. It sounded like I was standing right next to a speaker, like a huge, some big concert or something.
No, I've heard this before, and the sounds came from like three different directions, and the sounds began to close in as one group would holler to the other, and then the other, then that group would get closer. It's hard to explain, when you're trying to explain it like that, but like Group A would holler to Group B, and Group B would get closer, and Group C would holler, and group, it went back and forth, and basically started pinching in on the single location, like they were calling each other into a specific location. So, wow, that would have to be terrifying if you're in a tent. And if you know that any other people that you had been seeing, they know that you have weapons. No one would be foolish enough to be making sounds to try and scare you closing in on your tent. That would be stupid.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
mean,
would you? If you knew I was camping out there and I had guns and you're going to be gathering up 15 or 20 or 30 or your friends or whatever, let's close in on them making sounds and try to scare them half to death. Oh, but they've got guns and they're hunting. No, heck no. Brenton's going to be shooting some people, maybe all of you.
Yeah.
Like 15 shots off in every direction.
So, you want me to go ahead and continue?
Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So anyway, it's getting pretty terrifying. We start kind of realizing that even if we pop off a few rounds and this gets real, because we're having to come up with some kind of plan here all of a sudden. So we're looking at each other and kind of just speaking without words. I'm looking at him and he's grabbing his rifle, and so we're just kind of doing that thing. And so it starts getting very real, and we kind of come to this realization, like, we might get 4 of them, maybe. And God knows what's going to happen after that. And we didn't want to find out, and I'm literally at this point, I'm looking down and I'm shaking. I mean, I'm literally visibly shaking. I remember I asked Doug, I was like, look at me, am I shaking? And he said no, but I know I was shaking. I don't know why he didn't see it. Anyway, I was very shaken, and I just start praying. I just, at this point, I'm like, all I can do, and I've known it's worked for me in the past, is to fear not, because, I am protected by the one true living God. So, I prayed the Lord's Prayer with my full heart and kind of just left it at that. Literally, it was almost instantly after that, me and Doug both were slapped in the face with the most, it was the exact opposite of the feeling I just had. The exact opposite. It was instead of this horrific, you could possibly be eaten alive fear, to this total peace and just contentment. My brain slowed down. Like, literally everything just slowed down. My brain slowed down, and just everything, and it was just completely at peace, to the point where I asked Doug, I said, do you feel this? Do you feel this? He goes, yeah. And he's just laying back at this point on his back. And I'm kind of starting to slump over too. I'm just completely at ease, and it's just real strange. So meanwhile, these things start to get quiet, and they basically just completely get quiet. And we have about 5 minutes of this just awesome peace, just a peace that was just pushed on me. I'm not even that peaceful, and it made me peaceful. So I, about 5 minutes ago,
was he as scared as you were when
he was scared. He admitted to me after the fact that he was very scared, but Doug, he's seen and done a lot, and he was keeping his composure. I mean, I think we were both keeping our composure, right. But I was definitely more scared than he was. But he admitted, yeah, he was terrified that night. It's something he's never forgot. He can't wait to go back out and do it again. But I don't think we still don't have the full story of what happened. So I'm still kind of
right. Well, we'll get to that part here in a minute. But so basically, this is closing in on you, and all seems to be lost unless something happens. So you begin to pray, and when you pray, then the peace that surpasses understanding hits you, just like the Bible says, right?
Yes, that must have been it.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a Christian. I need to keep on learning more and more. But yeah, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
Right. Well, that's awesome, man. That you would be in need in such a way, and you pray, and you was able to get the peace, even if you were delusional, even if you were wrong. You were able to still pray you were able to pray, and because I don't think you were wrong, I don't think you were delusional. I think you were dead on
No.
what was happening, and your friend was too.
Yeah.
But you prayed, even whether or not he was scared as you were or whatever. But you pray, and all of a sudden, both of you have a peace that surpasses understanding. Did he ever talk to you about this peace that he felt?
Yeah. We were talking about it right when it happened. Because I asked him right as it happened, I looked at him and said, "Are you feeling this? And as we're feeling this, they all get quiet, and we are both hit with this." And like I said, I think at that point, I'm talking to Doug, and he's just laid, he's on his butt and just laid back on his elbows, like just kind of like he's about to fall asleep, and I'm just kind of sitting there, I'm starting to slump over, and I just kind of we had just been on complete fire 30 seconds ago, and then it was just. And it hit us both, and he confirmed it and said, yeah, it's just, yeah, it was something just like the fear that was put on us. It was a piece that was put on us.
Right.
Because we're both perceptive enough to kind of see when we're maybe letting our own emotions kind of deceive us and kind of, we try to be at least.
Right. Well, most of the time when someone's fearful in a situation that seems to be very, very desperate, it's very unusual that you would pray and be just delusional and get some delusional peace. So I really believe you. So when it comes to this point, and you pray and you get this peace that hits both of you. And it's very, very odd how all of a sudden you're going from complete fear to this complete peace and safe feeling. Okay, this is when it takes a very bizarre turn. And I wanted the audience to kind of track along with when this. So this is what really got me about your story. It's like, oh my goodness, this is the most crazy story I've ever heard.
This is
So continue from there. You all of a sudden get this peace feeling, and what happens?
So we talked about it, that we were both experiencing this, and we start relaxing, and then we start noticing that during this, they've grown quiet. And we have about 5 minutes of just this blissful peace where, we both said that we were feeling it, and, we just kind of wanted to be with the peace. I didn't really need to say anything to Doug. He didn't really need to say anything to me. It was just complete peace. And, so anyway, as this is happening, about 5 minutes later, these creatures, Bigfoot is most likely, what they were off the sounds and everything, but break out into basically what was song. Because it had rhythm. I've played drums my whole life too, so I understand a little bit of rhythm, and it had some rhythm to it, and they were all doing it in unison. Like, it was awesome. It was like they were screaming cadence or something. It was like they were all. Now, some would get off and something like that, but then a female chimed in, and this is when me and Doug kind of looked at each other and our jaws dropped to the floor like we were, a female chimed in, and it was just kind of this soft kind of, it wasn't human. It wasn't, it was, just this soft kind of, I'll do a little, it was like a oh kind of thing. But it was so beautiful. I've never heard, and I've been a fan of music my whole life. I've never heard anything that beautiful in my entire life. I actually started choking up and like getting a little teary-eyed. And these things are going on, and they're starting to have, and we just instinctively know they're so close to us at this point. We can basically, though we can't see them because they're shrouded in darkness right past this tree line, and we're in a tiny little clearing, so they're not far off at all. I forgot where I was. Okay, so she's singing, and we kind of intuitively know that they start having a good time for whatever reason. I guess I don't know if they thought all of a sudden we're not a threat to them, and it turned from this horrible, yelling at us, shrieking at us, into this singing. And actually, that night, I wish I would have got a picture of the moon, but it was like the biggest, like a golden freaking moon I'd ever seen. We just happened to go on this night, and it was just a perfect full moon, golden. And we kind of thought it was something strange, but they sang for another maybe an hour. I mean, this lasted we didn't get a wink of sleep all night until maybe about 30 minutes at 5 a.m. But, and we thought they were kind of getting drunk off singing back and forth with the moon. I mean, it was like they were directing their sounds kind of, it seemed like towards the moon. For whatever reason, it was this weird thing. And Doug starts getting into it. And he's kind of, and he's pretty wild. So he's just like, he looks at me, he's like, dude, I'm going out there, man. I'm joining them. It's like, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to start singing with them, man. I was like, no, Doug, that's like, for the love of God, please, because I'm not leaving the tent. And if I hear something horrific happen to you out there, that means I'm going to have to do something, and I really don't want to do it. Please, you don't have to go sing with them. Don't sing with them, sing in the tent or whatever. So he's like, all right, whatever, man, so it's like, all right. And so literally they keep going on, and they start kind of dying out a little bit. And this is when, I guess I nod off for about 30 minutes or so. Actually had some weird little dream, during that time about a Bigfoot standing. I'm like on my back in the tent, and I'm looking through the little flap that's unzipped, and he's like directly over my head. And he's just this massive Bigfoot. And I didn't know what to do. So I kind of like, I know my pistol's by my side. So I kind of start just inching towards my pistol, kind of not trying to make him have a move. I'm just kind of starting to do that. And the second I start reaching for my pistol, I wake up. I look to my right, because I'm kind of awake now, realizing I can't believe I just fell asleep. I don't know how I did that after that. I just went through this big range of emotion. And I look over, and Doug's gone. And the pistol's gone. His pistol's gone. So I'm sitting there like, oh, my God. And he had been talking to, he had left us, we found this walking stick way back on the beginning of the trail. And he really liked this walking stick, and he left it where we got the rabbit. We skinned the rabbit right there after we killed it. And so he left his walking stick during that process. And so he was telling me early in the night, like, well, all right, I'm not going to go sing with him. When we were talking back and forth, forgot this part. So like, well, I'm not going to go out there, but I'm just going to go down the path a little bit. I know, it's just not right down there. It's where I left that stick. I'm just going to go get the stick. And so, I was just like, no. So I figured, I'm like, well, what? He probably just went down. I've woken up again, and I'm looking, Doug's not there. And so I'm freaking out. I'm just like, God, what's going on here? And so I get it literally. I take my time, because I'm like, well, he could be back any minute. So about 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes roll off the clock, and I'm just kind of like, well, crap. If he just went down, it wasn't too far down and back. He should be back. So I started tying my shoes and, start getting my gun ready, and I guess I'm going to do this. And I'm not hearing anything, thank God. So I don't know. I guess I'd have to go look for him after a while, but anyway, so I'm not hearing any noise outside. It's maybe, 5 a.m., sun's not up. I'm literally about to unzip the tent, and I hear footsteps walking up, and it was Doug, and I'm unzipping the tent, and I freaking kind of yell at him, like, what the hell, you could have, woke me up, just let me know. Shit, I could have gone out there looking for you, this and that. And so anyway, he didn't find the stick. So we just sit there in the tent, and we're just talking. We stay there, not too long, about another hour and a half, and we're just talking about the night, what happened, like, that was insane, and all this, just all this stuff, just going over it. And now he's a full believer now. And I'd love for him to be on the show. He'd probably be a good interview, too, at some point. I don't know if you know. We'll probably go out again at some point. We pack up camp, we, clean up our stuff, and we're heading back down this trail, and we're walking through, and we're about to get back to the camp. We're, maybe 20 minutes away from the camp, and the trails kind of intersect, and mind you, the sun's just coming up. It's maybe maybe it was 7 a.m., something like that. The sun's just up. There's a lot of big, tall trees, so, it's not a lot of light. And this group of Boy Scouts come walking down the trail. And at this point, Doug, I'd kind of been waiting. I was waiting on Doug. He's as we were getting where he thought the stick was, he had moseyed, kind of went off trail a little bit, and I waited for him. And it just took him a few minutes. He just ran down to this little I was carrying all this gear. I didn't want to freaking follow him down this hill and back. So he didn't find it, comes back. And then we intersected this path with these Boy Scouts, and they had a little scout leader, and it was real strange. Again, it was very strange kind of experience because after the night before, I had my rifle on my back. I had a big knife on my hip and everything, and so I'm kind of like flagging these guys in, just letting them know, like, hey, here's my hunter's orange, or my, howdy, how's it going, good morning, kind of thing. And they're just so cool and calm and collected. These young kids, a lot of them 9, 10 years old, and they had this scout leader who had some mangy Boy Scout shirt on, and I'm kind of looking for credentials. It's a guy out in the woods with a bunch of kids. I don't, I just always kind of like, you don't look the part. And it was a ratty old shirt, Boy Scout shirt. He had some kind of jean shorts on. It just didn't look like, I thought they were very well kept and kind of, now I don't know, with their uniform and all that. And the kids were all the same way. The kids had a few things that would identify them as Boy Scouts, but other than that, you just think it's some guy taking a bunch of kids out. It didn't look the part. So I'm standing there, and we're crossing paths, like literally, like we're going down two separate, and it's early, and these kids look like they've been walking all night long. They're very, like, it's just kind of unkempt. They had been walking all night long, and one of them, I'm standing there, and I'm just kind of looking at them as they pass. They're 9-year-olds. It's just kind of like, howdy, how's it going? And they look at me. One of them walks past, and they're just looking at me straight through me. Like I'm just, like not, like they're older than me. Basically, it's kind of the vibe I got. Real calm. One of them looks at my knife. I got a real cool custom knife. I keep on me. He goes, hey man, nice knife. I got one just like it, man. And just real calm way to just throw that out there as he was passing on, past me, and I just kind of caught me off guard. I was just go, oh yeah, man, great knife. And so anyway, I start talking to the head guy a little bit, just like, oh, that's cool, you guys are Boy Scouts and all that. And we're just kind of small talking stuff, and the kids kind of mosey off. We didn't say much to each other, maybe just a few words. And Doug's kind of over off, kind of just doing whatever. I kind of, didn't see exactly what he's doing. One of the kids walks right up to him and just goes, here you go, and hands him the daggone walking stick that he'd been the exact one, because I'd seen it too before, and it was a very unusual, very smooth. I actually still got the stick back at my house, and it's kind of goofing around with my sister. We kind of think it's haunted or whatever, but we're not worried about it or anything like that. But it's just a real creepy stick. And the kid walked up, handed it to him, just said, here you go. And Doug just kind of looked at him in shock and took the stick. He was, he really wanted that stick. And anyway, so as those kids leave, we kind of look at each other. I was like, that was kind of weird. Didn't those kids, anyway.
Okay, well, hold on. The how would they know it was his stick?
I have no idea.
I
don't know.
How would they come off as so mature and in charge, over and above the maturity level as you all? But anyway, that just was bizarre. There's no way they would know that it was his stick. So we'll just stop at that part there. So you continue forward, because I've had all kinds of different stories on this channel, and so all kinds of theories could come out of this. So continue on.
Yeah, so immediately those kids leave, and I see that Doug's got the stick. Now, I didn't see the kid hand it to Doug, but this is what Doug's told me, and Doug's never lied to me since I've known him. He looks at me and goes, that kid just walked right up to me, man, and gave me the stick. And we're sitting there just baffled because we've been looking for the stick. He'd been making a big deal about the stick, and all of a sudden this random group of kids come out of the woods at 7 a.m. like they've been out far away from camp. I don't know what group of Boy Scouts does middle of the night type of exercise or, stuff like that. But I figured they'd be, in bed or something. But anyway, so Doug looks at me and just goes, you know what, man? He's like, I bet that was them. And I kind of hit me right there, like, oh man, I never even thought of that, but I started like I don't know where I stand on this because I have no idea, but his theory was that who we were hearing all that whole night was that group of kids. Maybe they, were like a skinwalker type thing.
Right.
able to, people that live in the woods that do this kind. I mean, it fit at the time, and I know I've talked to you and heard some other theories now, which maybe make even more sense than that. But I'm still pretty baffled.
The skinwalker thing is a real phenomenon. You can. I was talking to you about Bill Snowbolton or Snow, however you pronounce his last name. He knew people who actually changed into these creatures. I've had stories on my channel where someone was rubbing an ointment on their self and changed into a dog man. And I had the John, the guy from Kentucky, who had a story about these people changing into dog men. And you were thinking, well, if that's possible, then they could change into any creature they want, and according to the guy who was talking about the story with the rubbing the ointment on your body and doing whatever, you could change into whatever you wanted to. If you want to change into a Bigfoot, you could, or a Dogman, or whatever.
Yep.
But even J.C. Johnson, when I interviewed him from Crypto Four Corners, he was talking about these skinwalkers who can change into, a creature of their choice. And it usually has to do with some weird kind of something. And so that's a really good theory. But when we were talking, I was thinking, okay, you were in this perilous danger. These things were coming up on you. Very, very horribly scary kind of situation. And then you prayed and it turned into peace and singing. So, and my mind automatically went to that these Boy Scouts were your angels that came to protect you. So the singing you heard were the angelic beings that came and surrounded you and protected you from these squatch that were coming in on you. And they obviously would have beautiful singing. And then, according to the Bible, you can entertain angels unaware. So you met up with these angelic beings. They give him his stick back. They protected you that night. They were singing and being ministering spirits, helping you have some peace through the night. That was kind of what I thought it would, what happened. Because I do believe you were in danger. I believe these things were, these Bigfoot, were closing in on your location. You prayed. I believe God sent angels that came, protected you. They sang to disperse the situation, and dispense some peace to you that you could sleep the rest of the night. And as you were coming out, they had interest in looking into what was going on with you. They gave your friend his stick back and saw you all off, and you entertained angels unaware.
Yeah. That sounds like that could definitely be what happened. I mean, it was so beautiful that we were both just in silence listening to it, tearing up. I mean, it's just, there's certain things that are just so beautiful that they're a miracle that they exist. And this sound was kind of like one of those. It was just like, you're only going to hear this once kind of. It was just it was incredible. I mean, I can't forget that one if I tried. I mean, now granted, like you're saying, I do believe I was in big time danger, and Doug felt it too, and he was scared, and they were becoming very aggressive, and stuff was being even thrown near where our tent was. Nothing made contact with the tent, but around the area. And just by the shrieks and how they were doing it and how fierce it was, it was definitely a dominance thing. They were trying to. It was just, it was just scaring the crap out of us.
All right.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. So when you went to pray, that it would make sense that God would send some angels to protect you. I mean, that's what the Bible says He would do. So that was just my opinion on the whole thing, because the singing, it turning into everything went quiet, and then singing started, That was just to give you some peace so that you would sit still for the night. And then, you could be, brought up out of that woods and let off in safety. Because I do think you were surrounded by a large group of Sasquatch that were coming in on your location, maybe because you were hunting. You were hunting their food, and it's an intimidation thing when it comes to predators. You were hunting their food, you were taking their food, you were showing your dominance, and also when your friend started howling back at him, he doesn't know what he was saying. Some people go out there and they'll do a call, the different calls they've heard. They might do one type of call that you don't know what that means. It might mean, dude, I'm the baddest Sasquatch up in here. If you want some, bring it. You know what I'm saying? Or it might be, please don't mess with me. I'm a smaller Sasquatch. But
I do remember poking Doug a few times, just saying, "Don't provoke him, Doug. Don't stop. Don't provoke him." I just didn't. It was already crazy and wild enough. I didn't need him screaming back at him at the time, and he didn't keep up with that for too long. But he was just, I don't know. He was just having fun with it at one point. But,
well, one of the most famous type of Bigfoot calls is what they call the siren call. Okay, and the person will start out and they'll do like this going up in pitch type thing, and they'll manipulate that sound, but it'd be a really long call. They call it the siren call. And basically that's a Sasquatch dominance call. If you do that and there's an alpha male in the area, you're going to end up having a problem on your hands. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think that's what was going on, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, is that what call he did? The long drawn out one?
Well, he was reciprocating he was trying to mimic them.
Oh,
so
okay.
Whatever they would do, he would yell right back at them. And that I think I started maybe provoking it more. But yeah, there's a few times I tried to just shut him up because it was just getting too real, too quick. And
yeah, well, at least you had the common sense to know, hey man, dude, they're trying to show you they're dominant, and you're trying to tell them you're dominant. That ain't good.
Well, I felt responsible too because I drug him out here on this crazy thing, and here we are, like, oh, God, so I didn't want him to get us both in trouble, but I was trying to be as just play it as safe as I could, because at that point everything was out the window. We had no, we weren't about to defend ourselves against 20 or 30 massive Bigfoot 20 yards around. I mean, it was just blatantly obvious. It was just like, well, here's our rifle. I could just set that on the ground. Might as well. I mean, completely surrounded.
Right. So the praying thing, that is, I guess, when you prayed and then all of a sudden you had peace and everything went the way that it went, I guess that has been an amazing kind of experience for you, hasn't it?
Yeah. And I've always been the kind of person that's had a whole lot of faith. I just, I've had experiences before that, I got into briefly with Vic, but he, it's a Dogman show, but, I was a practicing Buddhist for about 7 years and, had some weird experiences through that and saw some entities through that, that turned me right back to Christianity. And I've been a reborn Christian now for maybe 3-4 years, something like that. And, my life's just continued to get better and better. And, but I've always felt like I've, kind of had, the open mind and the desire to truly know. And if you really, really want to know, if you're going to go out on the ledge and step off, God will show you every single time.
Yeah.
And so
right.
I've got a couple things though, but, it's like within me and what just happened, I'm sure I'll be back out, maybe testing my luck again with Doug. I don't know. We're going to kind of talk about what we want to do, how we want to go about it this time. Maybe we'll have more people, or or something, or maybe we won't go at all. I mean, I kind of, I don't really feel the need, but if opportunities presented to go research something, I mean, the desire's in me to do it. Basically what I'm getting at is I know God's with me. I've heard his voice tell me that audibly. So if I have this desire in me, I'm going to seek it out. I feel protected, and I know I'm protected. As long as I go about it safely in the correct way about things and do that. So, I mean, I'm.
Right. I agree.
I'm interested to.
I agree. Now on the Buddhist thing, you had these encounters with some other entities?
Yes.
Well,
and I told pretty much everyone. I was a personal trainer for a while. This little gym, not too far from here, and I'd usually, once I became good enough buddies with a client, I would always just get right into it. There's no hiding the fact that I'm happy to be a Christian and this and that, and I don't care what you are, but I'll always just tell them my story. And so I'd tell everyone what happened to me. So I was a Buddhist, and I was a practicing Buddhist. Basically, the first book I ever picked up, a book by Lama Surya Das called, Awakening the Buddha Within, and I learned how to meditate. And I was at a very dark time in my life. I didn't know what, a lot of stuff I'd done had, failed, and it just seemed like I couldn't catch a break. I didn't know why, and I was real depressed, and I was really seeking answers. I was seeking the truth, and no matter what it was going to take, I was just going to sit and stare, whatever practice they wanted me to do, I was going to do it. And so the first night I sat down and meditated, I'm watching my breath, and I'm with the breath, and all of a sudden I'm just becoming the breath because it's all there is, because I'm just bringing my focus back to the breath. And before you know it, I exit my third eye, and I am at some other world kind of thing. We were by some big cliffside on a mountain, and it was real dark, and the moon was out, stars in the sky, and there's this big group of men all around. They're tall. I'm not the tallest guy. I'm like 5'10". And they're all taller than me. They got these big gray beards, and they're all looking around. And I'm kind of just on the outside of their circle, and they're all kind of looking. And one of them's talking, the leader's talking, and I look over, and I'm starting to listen to him, and he says, "We pray to the man that comes to us in our dreams." And and immediately I just look to the sky when he says that, and just the outline in fire, just beautiful fire, just streaks across the sky, and the face of Jesus appears. And this kind of freaks me out. And if you know anything about meditation and doing that kind of thing, if you get a little too nervous, you'll get jerked back in to your body. It's something about the fight or flight instinct or something. Yeah. So I'm realizing all this is real. And I get jerked back into my body, and I'm doing this. I'm living at my parents' house at the time, and I'm outside on their AC compressor, just sitting, trying to sit, so I just to get some peace, I'm out there doing that. And so I know it's real. So I start practicing Buddhism, and I start doing the whole thing. I freaking, I'm chanting things. I'm doing meditations. I'm actually going to a place in Oak Cliff, Karma Kagyu, in the Tibetan tradition form of Buddhism. And I'm doing these practices, and I'm seeing these holy men. I drove out to California, met some holy man, quote, supposedly, and so anyway, I feel like Buddhism is doing all right. I'm definitely pleased with my ability to meditate. It's allowing me to just get very calm at any time, and I'm enjoying the practices of it and everything. Right. I'm just enjoying. I'm not thinking much of it. And one night, I'm doing these. I'm doing the Om Mani Padme Hum. It's a chant that means "Hail to the jewel and the lotus," and I'm just chanting this over and over again. I'm rolling these beads. I'm in this, seated position, meditate. Position.
Yeah.
And I literally start, all of a sudden my tongue does a weird flip, like it flips over in my mouth, and I start going side to side. I'm starting to rock back and forth. And I start chanting. I start chanting this in language I've never heard of before. It was like Latin. There's only I've heard Latin before in my head, and so I'm speaking this thing. And I kind of realized I'm not doing any of this, and I know meditation teaches you no matter what happens, you just don't pay any attention to it. It's just phenomena. I don't care what happens. You may think you're going to die. Just breathe, So I'm sitting there like, well, this is starting to take over. I'm chanting. I'm going nuts. And I just know intuitively, I know I have to go into my heart. That's kind of where, I feel like everything power comes from. And I go into my heart and I just just pull it back. I just pull away as hard as I can, and I rip this thing away from me. And I sat there in shock for like 15 minutes, just thinking, like, what in the world? Like, they haven't told me anything about this. They didn't say I'd be speaking languages and rocking back and forth and acting all, insane like this. I mean, this is very strange. So I really don't think much of it. I just think, well, I got intimidated. I should have just gone through the experience, not clung to my existence and all this stuff. But so anyway, I just, weeks pass, and I'm in my room and I'm meditating, and I'm sitting up in bed, and I would do that before I go to bed, just relax me, just a little mini meditation before bed, and I'd do that, and I'd read these sutras, and I'd do all this stuff. And so I'm sitting in bed, and I got my eyes closed, and I'm meditating, and I feel a hand on my arm, and it's a hot little hand, and I just kind of like, you know what, this is happening again, weird stuff's happening, I'm just going to go through it, so I don't think anything of it. And finally, I hear a voice on the side of my ear saying, join us. And I was like, you know what, I don't care, there's voices right next to me, I'm feeling arms, hands on my arm, that's, you know what, I'm pushing through. And then I just kind of all of a sudden started getting real freaked out, and I was like, screw it, I'm not going through this. And I turned around, I looked to my right, and there was this little girl sitting right next to me, black hair, black eyes, and she just screamed right in my face, just stopped an inch from my face. And I've just been meditating, which if you've ever done long periods of meditation, it's basically like giving yourself a lobotomy. I don't care what anyone tells you or anything like that. I respect your tradition. I respect all people's religious practices. But from my experience, it's just dulling your mind. You're sitting there focusing on nothing, and you're not getting anything done. And I worry about it after I was almost possessed, and now this. So I just kind of sit there staring. She disappears, man. She's in the thin air after she screams at me, and I'm just still sat there just like, well, all right, that was, maybe I should be trying to go through, maybe I should open my eyes from time to time. Right. So literally the next night, I'm in bed and I'm sleeping, and I wake up, and I'm having some kind of like sleep paralysis type situation. And I finally wake up to the point where, okay, I'm not just sitting here staring at my fan. I'm moving my body. I kind of get up, I hang my legs off the bed, and I'm just sitting there, and there's this shadow that appears on the wall. And it's kind of behind me. It's over there to my left in the corner of the room. And this shadow is maybe 8 feet tall, and it looks very cartoonish. It had these shoulders that, like, pointed upwards. I mean, it was like pointy shoulders, that, like a cartoon. It had a little hat on. And this thing was just hit me with that fear, that same fear I felt on that day when I thought I saw those dogmen, the same kind of, just this deep, horrible, god-awful fear. And I must have sat there and just stared at this thing what felt like about 20 minutes. And finally, I just keep fighting. And finally, I'm able to just kind of like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go to sleep. This is just phenomenal. I'm in this Buddhist state of mind where everything is literally nothing, and it's just phenomenal. It's my own fears creeping up on me. And I just say, screw it. I'm just going to sleep. If I'm dying, it was so bad, I thought I was going to die. I was like, if I die, I die. At least, I'm trying. I don't know what to do. So, the next night, finally, it kind of crescendos. I'm sitting there and I'm doing meditation, and I'm just on my floor, and I get this horrible feeling again, and I'm like, you know what now? So I look up, and this thing's in the corner of my room. It is what I still call, I guess, the fallen angel. I don't know how else to describe it or how, but it was basically a black burnt. It had been like burnt. The wings on it had been burnt to a crisp. There was the skeletal structure for the wings, but the wings were like fried and parts were missing. Real grotesque looking. It had like a half human, half bird type body, because its little legs, it had these little kind of almost like bird legs. It was crouched down, and it wasn't looking directly at me. It was kind of looking just off into the distance. And it's just breathing. It's got red eyes, completely black, mouth open. I don't really remember seeing teeth or anything like that, but like bird body and wings and really long arms, longer arms than normal, kind of just ghoulish looking, horrific thing. And it's breathing the spirit of me. And finally, I just had it. And I was like, you know what? There's an old saying in Tibetan Buddhism, and the old masters will say, when they have these occurrences with demons or spirits and stuff like that, they'll say fet. And fet just means go away in Tibetan. And so I'm sitting there like, I'm just going to walk through this thing. I've heard stories of these old monks that they walk right through these things and it ain't no problem. They just shoo them away. So I literally take a step towards this thing and we lock eyes. It just turns and looks at me. And instantly, in an instant, I knew that this thing was so far out of my, like, I might as well have been stepping in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime. But way worse than that. And it communicated to me through its eyes that, like, it not only, it would love for me to come and try and attack it, but that it was so much older than me. I immediately learned that it was so much smarter than me. I got the idea that this thing is 5,000 years old. This thing is literally, if you were fighting all the knowledge you've learned, you could tell with the look. It was just, and so I just froze, like I'm not about to, it gave me the look like I knew that it wanted me to try something. It was just that, so that's what it wanted. And so that kind of shook me. And I sat there and I stared at this thing for another second, and I immediately just said, you know what? I was like, if you got a problem with me, then you've got a problem with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And I converted right there on the spot, and I haven't had a problem since. And that was years ago, before all this Dogman stuff started happening. But never a problem since, as far as things showing up in my room and trying to possess me and stuff like that.
Wow, that's incredible, bro. Well, I'm really glad you shared that. So when it comes to the fear that you felt when you were walking on the trail, and you felt this fear that projected after you had saw these dogmen, or even before you had saw them, the fear was equivalent to the type of fear you felt when you were doing this Buddhist stuff.
Yeah. Specifically, it was the little girl thing, which I've learned. I researched all this, and apparently thousands of people across the country have seen the exact same things I've seen. The shadow person is a thing. Yeah. The hag woman is what they call that little girl.
Right.
And I didn't really find much on that creature that I saw, but it had wings, and it was definitely very intelligent. I call it on the fallen angel, but but anyway, the fear though, especially with the shadow person, I just remember that one for some reason very specifically, and it was just kind of like a gut wrenching fear, but it was I could tell also the thing was it was very insidious fear. It was a kind of fear that was making me. It was trying to. First off, the thing was like jealous of me, trying to make me feel bad. All this is being communicated because I'm sitting there just staring at this thing and kind of trying to understand. And I'm literally at the time a Buddhist. So I'm trying to fight the thing with positive thoughts. Like, you know what, man? Come on, man. You get all this, and it's the kind of, he was pushing such a ungodly, it was far past any kind of hate and jealousy and kind of sickness that I had ever even known existed.
Right.
These things are just like God's love is greater than we can comprehend. Satan's hate is the same way.
And with the angels, you ended up when they showed up. God gave you a peace that surpassed understanding. So what my whole point is that some of these creatures that are even physical, some of these creatures that are what I believe they're all physical unless they're disembodied, because even fallen angels have bodies. All of these beings that you were seeing have bodies, except I think the shadow people are disembodied. I think they have lost their body, and that's a whole long teaching in itself. But they had the ability to project feeling, and so that's kind of what I wanted to get at, is that even if a Dogman or a Bigfoot is a physical creature who lives completely on this planet, if they have origins that could be make them Nephilim type or something, or something like that, they could still have an ability to project a feeling, which would be fear or whatever. But when the angels showed up, God projected this feeling of complete peace, and you're safe and that kind of thing. And so in a way, you have an amazing story of how all these different entities made you feel. and your experiences with physical creatures, but the feelings that came along with it, that helps even. It really helps me to explain what I've been trying to say for a while. That in the scriptures, angelic beings could come down, which were physical beings that could eat with people. They could even bring food you could eat, called manna. It was bread that was from heaven. So they're physical creatures. They're not disembodied creatures. They can hunt and eat and everything on this planet. But they can come and smite people with the spirit of fear, or they could smite them with madness, blindness, make them forget. They could abduct you and take you to another town. There's stories like that in the scriptures. A lot of people would be amazed at all the different kind of stories there are. So your story has got a lot of these different aspects to it. I believe the Lord has given you a tremendous opportunity to understand many, many things and help put these things together in your mind as you search out these mysteries, kind of like I do. That's why I call this Brenton Mysteries to Search. I wanted to know answers to the things that happened to me.
Yeah. And I just think it empowers us. I mean, I feel like, as a Christian, a real big believer in all, I've always been this way, as I kind of talked to you before, in the sense I've always wanted to find out. I've always been a seeker. I always wanted to really know. I always wanted to be an explorer and an adventurer. And I want to, I love the fact that there's stuff undiscovered and there's so much to know. And we're really getting screwed at all sides right now. We're fighting a war against, it's, when I look out into the world, I see a lot of good, naturally, around me, and I try to help my fellow man the best I can. But I see stuff that I think, we're headed for, the waterfall edge here, probably before we know it, because we got a lot of people that are closed-minded and they're too comfortable in their own thoughts of reality. They're not willing to see the reality for itself. That's, I think, the biggest issue. And if I can help in any kind of way to just prod people into being more open-minded, being able to have discussions and disagree and still respecting the person you're debating,
right?
Stuff that I've never even seen on a presidential debate, respect, simple stuff that, it's just so blatant right now that, whatever puzzle piece I can do, I'd be more than happy to.
Well, you've done a wonderful job tonight, and I'm telling you this, that where you have brought up praying to the Lord Jesus, and there actually is a power to bring you out of these bad situations. That, to me, is the most important thing you could ever teach anyone.
There's a biblical verse that's just exactly what you just said. It's like, though I forget exactly what verse it is. I've read it 100 times, but though I will bring you into harsh places, and it's something to the effect of, and you may feel that, you're being carried on this way, I will always provide a way out. If, and that way out may be tough. You may have dug yourself quite a hole. But if you're strong enough and you have that faith that he will get you, there's guys in history that, that have killed, that have done horrific things, and been saved, because they're willing to repent and willing to do whatever it took to get close, get back with God.
Yeah.
So
it's quite amazing that you were practicing Buddhism. You knew, you had a deep down knowing that you were probably going down the wrong road with that. But when you got to a certain point, you said, my Lord Jesus Christ. You went straight back to Jesus and he accepted you.
That's right.
That's so cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I love how,
God is
truly
patient,
is an
man.
awesome God.
God is very patient and long-suffering with us, isn't he?
Oh, he's forgiven me more times than I even want to think about. The fact that I'm even here is a miracle. The fact that, I've done more dumb stuff than anybody.
Man, dude, we'll talk more on the side about that. I don't want to air it all. hey man, I've been the biggest fool of all the fools. You know what I'm saying. I feel
Yeah,
that
I
way,
hear you.
and the Lord has been gracious and merciful. He's protected me through my stupidity.
Yep.
Saved my life when I didn't deserve it. I should have been
Yep.
dead a few different times, and I could not believe He saved me out of wrecks
Mm-hmm.
where I was out acting a fool and got in a car wreck, flipping my vehicles, and
Mm-hmm.
and people even dreamed that I died. Come told me their dream. It's all kinds of crazy stuff. But anyway, we're coming up on an hour and a half. I hope I can upload this into one show. So anyway, man, you and me are gonna have to talk some more. Privately and stuff, and I'm sure the fans are super stoked about you sharing your stories, man, and all that you did share. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So everybody out there in YouTube land, I want you to give Joel a big thank you for coming and sharing. And I want to say thank you, Joel. Thank you very much for coming and sharing all that you have shared, and you've opened yourself up quite a bit, to share all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
interesting stuff, and I think that it's been a blessing, because
Yep.
the way you shared and everything adding up to certain things, and ignore the negative comments, embrace
Mm-hmm.
those who the ones who you'll help some people with what you did share. So anyway, all you out there in YouTube land, I really appreciate you listening to this whole show. I'm glad that you came along today. I think this is a fascinating show. It is one of the most, I believe, blessed, kind of anointed type shows in a little while, in the way that this all flowed out. So if anyone out there has anything they want to share, you think it's good, a good story, a Bigfoot, Dogman, any kind of cryptid, supernatural, paranormal, think it'd make a good show, you can contact me at brentonson@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you. And thank you, YouTube land, and until the next time, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.